Welcome in. It's Friday, September 27th with the EBDB Weekly Update. I'm your host, Tim Sorrells, and with me today again, my host, Brett Colleton. Brett, how you doing?
Proud of you for nailing the league name this time around, Tim. Friday night, a little late in the week for us, but kids are asleep. Let's talk some fantasy football.
I know. We're recording at 9:10. The children are sleeping, and this is the joys of being a parent. Friday night, we're raging at our computers.
Cheers.
You got a beer. I should have got something, but not for me tonight, I guess.
There's always next time.
You've been a single parent this week, too, so you must be even more tired.
Yeah, very lucky to have my wife back, and shout out to all the single parents. It's not an easy thing to do. So that being said, had a lot of fun hanging out with the son, eating dinner, just the boys was tight. So it's been a good week, but the double parent lifestyle is the one for me for sure.
I get that. Now we're split up with two, so you feel like you're just totally split half the time. Or Rachel's chasing around. I shouldn't say chasing around. She's just holding Ryan and feeding him 24/7. And I'm the one chasing down Zoe. So we're kind of semi doing single parent lifestyle in some ways, and it's different. That's for sure.
It's man-to-man defense. 2-on-1, you can play a little bit of zone, get a little bit of a break, but when you got to play press coverage on a toddler, I'm sure that gets a little bit more tiring on a daily basis.
And toddlers don't know the definition of no. You tell them to do something and you tell them this is how it's going to be. They're like, absolutely not. We're going to do it my way.
The mini boss life is one I'm not super excited about. So
it's a problem.
We'll get there eventually, but right now, right now he's sleeping sound, so that feels pretty good.
Nice. Enjoy it while it lasts. That's for sure. Well, another week of football. Again, we're getting to this late, so Thursday games have already happened here, but feels like it's been a long time since last weekend in the events of last week.
Yeah, I don't have much to say about Thursday Night Football. Both those teams are super boring. Brandon Aubrey's got a big leg. That's about it. I don't expect either of those teams to be very good. What I did want to ask was, how are you feeling about this situation in Carolina with Bryce Young getting benched and Andy Dalton coming out with 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, looking like the only legit quarterback in the league? The Red Rocket is at it again. How did your review of the Panthers week between weeks 3 and 4 go for you?
Well, I'm going to correct you. We're going to keep it PG. It's not Red Rocket. He's the Red Rifle. I know that.
My bad.
You're thinking of your dog and how he gets excited about stuff, but no, he is the Red Rifle. But it's great. It's hilarious that Bryce Young has been this bad, and everyone wants to blame Carolina. They are a garbage franchise. Their owner sucks. They make terrible decisions.
Yep.
So it's like, yes, that's factually true. But subbing in Andy Dalton shouldn't have solved all their problems. But all of a sudden, they look like a great team.
Not like that.
It's really clear that it's Bryce Young's fault and that he doesn't read this defense well. He's not confident. He's not making decisions. And coming in, he was never that guy who was the uber elite athlete. It was like you're drafting him because of his brain, his analysis, and how he reads the field. Yep. And you can't do that for jack shit.
I 100% think it's because he's short. The reason Kyler Murray gets away with it is because he is creative in the pocket. He can roll out. He can make plays happen with his legs. Russell Wilson was the same way. Russell Wilson's creativity won the Seahawks a Super Bowl. I just think that Bryce Young doesn't have the pocket presence to be successful in the NFL. And then you put in a tall, decisive Andy Dalton, and Deontay Johnson looks like Deontay Johnson again. The offense is moving the ball. Chuba Hubbard is good. And, I think that surprised basically everybody, because when you have an offense that can beat you in a couple different ways, it opens up the run game. It opens up the short passing game. Wild that they looked like an exceptional offense and a good football team. I think they caught everybody by surprise.
My last comment on this one is we had the analogy during our draft of not wanting to take that middling player because you want to shoot for the upside of somebody young who could make the next step. And that makes sense for fantasy football. It seems like NFL teams are doing the same thing at quarterback, where Andy Dalton's probably a better quarterback than, you could probably name 10 quarterbacks in the league that he should be starting over, just based off of how he looked this last week. Easily. But nobody wants him because he's old and not exciting. And probably is just a game manager at this point. How many teams need that? So many teams would be much better with a game manager like him in their role.
I totally agree. This is why Sam Darnold is doing well. This is why Baker Mayfield is doing well. Those guys have been around a long time. They've been in a bunch of different offenses. They know how to move the football. They're not great quarterbacks. They're not exceptionally gifted in any specific way, but it is jarring to see the number of just legitimately bad quarterbacks there are. I was a big believer in Anthony Richardson this year. I mean, not Justin Herbert. Trevor Lawrence looks bad. Malik Willis doesn't look good, even though the Packers keep winning. Congratulations. It is just wild that there's this belief that you need to draft somebody young and use the lack of salary that they're occupying in order to make a good football team, but you forget that you need a quarterback that can actually move the ball. Caleb looks bad. Bo Nix looks bad. Jaden Daniels is doing it better than anybody because he's had 5 years of quarterback. He's played in good college systems. He's got a lot of experience. And so it's just interesting because you take a guy who doesn't have a lot of confidence, doesn't have a lot of experience, and replace him with somebody who's made playoff games and knows how to be a good quarterback, and you win football games. It feels not that hard, and yet the Panthers made it seem super easy.
There's a general lack of patience, it feels like, too. The quarterbacks who sit for the first year, kind of learn, get a grip on things, and figure out the system have done better than the ones who are thrown to the wolves, get beat to hell, and then just lose the mental aspect of it. I mean, CJ Stroud might be the exception. He was good last year. And he's been, I would say I think he exceeded expectations. I would never call him great based on his performances, but he was good and exceeded expectations for what people wanted him to do as a rookie. But beyond him, I can't think of anybody else who's been tossed in as a rookie on week one, or even just early in the season, and been great. Even Jaden Daniels wasn't good the first 2 weeks. He's half of his production those first games was running, and he threw a lot better this week, which was great to see. But again, it's just different at this point.
Yeah, we'll see if it sustains, but it's definitely it's hard to watch. When you look at some of the older drafts, as an Niners fan, we took Trey Lance. We got Trey Lance, what was it, 3rd overall, and the better quarterback we took with the last pick in the draft. And it's just you don't know with any of this. And so it sucks because it's the most important job in football. And for every CJ Stroud, there's a Trey Lance or a Mac Jones or David Carr level person that just got kind of thrown to the wolves and couldn't hang. So I mean, it's made it really interesting. I feel like there's the have and the have-nots when it comes to quarterback. Which is before we move on, I do want to kind of shout out the undefeated teams that we have because I think the quarterbacks there are super interesting as well. Bills, great quarterback. Josh Allen rules. That guy is super awesome. Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, really great. Seahawks, Geno Smith, kind of an Andy Dalton type player, a guy who just comes in and does his job and moves the football. And then you have Justin Fields of the Pittsburgh Steelers, somebody that I don't think we ever expected to be 3-0, which is cool. And then I saw, sure enough, an Instagram reel come around my algorithm where putting up that the Chiefs are literally 3 plays away from being 0-3. 3 plays that could have been maybe not the Isaiah Likely toe tap touchdown in week 1, but the other ones are penalty calls that went the Chiefs' way that ended up winning them a game instead of losing them the game. So it feels very fraudulent, even though you have the best quarterback in the league. Your thoughts on the undefeateds?
I think that the Chiefs are that team that's getting away with things that they shouldn't be. Everybody wants to talk about the penalties, and I get that. They seem to get the favorable calls, that's for sure. But even Mahomes doesn't look great. I think everyone's used to him being this godlike person who can do whatever he wants, hit any player in the field, and he definitely still has the physical traits. I just don't see that he's doing it anymore. it's all checkdowns. He hasn't hit many deep passes. He's not going for that. And I would like to see what happens when Worthy and him get a better connection. Because I think that maybe that's what changes. Or maybe B, it's like everybody thought Mahomes was all that. But could it have been Tyreek Hill was all that and made Mahomes look really good when all the eyes are on him? And then Kelsey's running free down the middle of the field. It's like, take your choice. Those are two fantastic players. You can't guard them both. You can't double them both.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, Mahomes looks great because of that. I think he's still a good QB. So it's probably wrong in some capacities, but just hasn't been as good this year as I would expect. I think the Steelers are a bit fraudulent at this point. This is my opinion.
Defense, though.
The defense is great.
Defense is great.
But look at the passing.
The defense will win you games. Mike Tomlin will go 500 yet again, and will keep his job, even though his QB1 and his QB1B are rough. But yeah, 3-0. I mean, you can't knock it. Justin Fields is doing what he needs to do. When it comes to Patrick Mahomes, I feel like the Chiefs are just kind of the Chiefs are just kind of coasting. They know what they need to do to get to the playoffs. And then, as they always do, they ramp it up in the playoffs. The thing that I always feel like is what I feel about Patrick Mahomes the same way that I used to feel about Tom Brady. Like 5 minutes and under in a one-score game, you need to run the clock out and not give that dude the ball. Because if you give him the ball, he's going to win the game. Be it penalty, be it, insane drive with 23 seconds to kick a last-minute field goal, whatever it is. He is inevitable. You have to win, you have to beat them in a way that most teams cannot end up doing because they just have this formula that gets them to the playoffs every year and then they actually will turn it on. I think that Travis Kelce is a bad fantasy investment the last couple years because they have no need for him. He has been partying with Taylor Swift for 7 months since he won the Super Bowl. He is not in shape. He is not focused on football. He doesn't give a shit because when they make it to the playoffs, he will turn it on and he will be Travis Kelce again. But during the regular season, Mahomes doesn't give a shit. Andy Reid doesn't give a shit. They'll just win enough games to get them to where they need to go.
You're probably right. And it's funny, the Bills are 3-0 and they've been really good. But their offense is almost turning into the Chiefs, where I feel like Patrick Mahomes has had enough weapons in the past that there isn't one guy any given week. And maybe Rashee Rice is that guy for them right now. But right now, the Bills don't have a stud at the position. I mean, Khalil Shakir was the best receiver last week. Very good. Hasn't done every pass thrown to him, he's been caught, which is another absurd stat. But it's just Josh Allen's good and can work with whatever he's given is kind of the story there. And also James Cook is playing fantastic. So you can actually run the ball and there's a threat beyond Allen hucking it deep to Diggs.
It'll be interesting to see because I think that has been a big boon for them. James Cook's play over the first 3 weeks has been exceptional. And I think that the Chiefs are probably expecting that same sort of production from Isaiah Pacheco. And now that he's hurt, I think Reid and Mahomes must be in a room being like, well, we can't just give Rashee Rice 1,000 catches a game. We need to do something else to win these football games. And so it'll be interesting over the next couple of weeks while he heals from a fractured leg to see what they do in order to win games.
I don't think he's back until pretty late, to be honest. Somebody said it was a fractured.
I think I heard 8 weeks.
At least, but then there was talk about ligament damage too. They said no ligament damage at first, but now they're saying like that tightrope procedure. And I believe that's what Pollard had that knocked him out for the year. And even when he came back, he wasn't good. So I think that, again, if we're talking about the Chiefs milking things until the playoffs and keeping people healthy, maybe you don't see him in a serious role really the rest of the year. Maybe week 15, bring him back just to get him up to speed before the playoffs. But they don't need him.
It's a bummer, man. He's a lot of fun to watch. Does a lot of things. People are probably tired of us pontificating about football. So let's move on to waivers. Even though it was a super quiet week, I think everybody feels pretty good about the squads that they have. A couple things here and there, backup running backs and stuff got picked up. I think the biggest ones were you picking up Cole Kmet, who had a great game last week, and I will happily talk about my Jared Goff experience. But tell me about Kmet and the Chiefs' defense before I talk about quarterbacks.
With Kmet, I felt that there wasn't many choices out there. I've had the wrong choice of tight end every week. Hunter Henry is just...
Tight end's rough.
It's one of those scenarios where there's nobody good, and I need to stay afloat until Hawkinson comes back. And I was thinking that I can maybe just stash him and not use him immediately and wait to see what happens when he gets back to that team. But with the way tight ends are looking, it's like, it doesn't matter. Second he's eligible, I don't care if he plays half the snaps. He's just going to have to go and figure it out. And then...
Who do the Chiefs play this week?
They play the Chargers.
Okay.
But Justin Herbert might not play. We'll see. It's
just got to stop the run.
Yeah, I've had a few close matchups, so I felt that it was one I just need to go get a defense that I thought was going to be sustainable. Because last week again, my defense kind of blew. Just got to make that work.
This is the first time I'm generally not. I'm a big streaming defenses person. I think playing the matchups is the best way, but I lucked into the Steelers defense, and I don't know that I will swap them out anytime soon. I think that they are, the most dominant defense in the league. So I feel it is the first time in a long time that I felt like, I feel sorry for people that are streaming defenses and playing matchups like that. But I think that's a good pick. Better than a lot of things that were on the table. And
there weren't
tight
many
end
choices.
is just such a wasteland.
Yeah, you just have to hope it turns around. And then you went and blew a bunch of money on a QB. You already given up on this Anthony Richardson experiment?
I don't know that I'm giving up. So I heard a stat that Justin Fields last year was like bottom 30 in fantasy production in the month of September last year. And then in November, December, he was like the third overall quarterback because as things get colder, as it gets harder to throw the ball, quarterbacks who run tend to run a lot more. That being said, Anthony Richardson sucks. He is a bad quarterback. He is I might think that Derrick Henry is a better quarterback. I've seen Derrick Henry throw more touchdowns than Anthony Richardson, I think, in his career. It's one of those things where I thought it was going to be a lot of fun to watch Anthony Richardson do chaotic shit on a weekly basis, and it is not fun because he is just missing wide open dudes all the time. And so I felt like I needed to get an adult in the room, somebody who is part of a functioning offense that should be successful. I read a stat where Jared Goff has the largest gap between actual fantasy points and expected fantasy points. The big issue is that the Lions' run game is so good that the passing game just isn't doing it. I'm curious to see if that changes as they play in a dome during the winter months. Maybe they throw the ball a little bit more. Maybe Montgomery and Gibbs get banged up, so they have to throw the ball a little bit more. But until Anthony Richardson can prove it like 2 weeks in a row that he is that guy and he is putting his legs to use, I can't start him. I just can't.
And Goff was supposed to be fantastic in a dome or at home. Like that's usually where his two best places were. And they started the season off so cold that it was kind of hard to trust him. So we'll see if he's turned things around at this point. Now that the offense is maybe getting a little more in a groove.
My favorite fantasy podcast has a theory that he's a nervous pooper. And so when he goes on the road, he's just like locked up because he hasn't pooped all week, that he doesn't play as well. But when he's home, he's very comfortable and he gets his poops out. And I love it. So I will be starting him at home every week that he plays.
Who's your favorite podcast? I never heard this theory.
I'm not going to share that information as I make basically all of my decisions specifically off of this podcast. So
okay. It won't be hard to figure it out. I'm sure I can Google, is Jared Goff a nervous pooper? And I bet you there's a Reddit thread for it from your people. So I'll figure it out.
There's that. And like, if anything that we talked about before going into this podcast, like I'm sure that you could find it. But in any case, don't go listen. It is the best fantasy podcast though. I fucking love the guys that I listen to. They're great.
Okay. Well, I'll figure it out and I'll tell you offline here so I don't dox you on who your person is. Also,
it's all good.
you shouldn't dunk on Anthony Richardson so much. Remember, great keeper value. Everybody should want to trade for him. They should pay up because he's going to be great forever.
If he if he gets better, I'll keep him again. I literally have him in all 3 of my fantasy leagues. So I have a lot of Anthony Richardson stock going on right now. So I hope he gets better, but I'm still trying to make the playoffs in this league, and I need to make smart people decisions, not starting Anthony Richardson decisions.
I get that. But yeah, the rest of waivers was quiet. Not much out there. More people were picked up on day 2 of waivers than on day 1, which is kind of funny. But that just goes to show that nobody of interest at this point, or nobody drastically moving the needle. Maybe it's a better way to look at it. We already have them on our rosters at this point.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised Jacoby Myers was on waivers. I just saw that pop up this morning that Danny had picked him up. Jacoby Myers is a good value. Didn't know. I would have put a bunch of money on him as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's solid.
So,
I think he's one of those guys that nobody expects to be great.
Just a rough go in New England. I think he's playing a lot better. I like Gardner Minshew, so definitely a nice when bye weeks start coming in. I think Jacoby Myers will be a good plug and play kind of guy. So That's a good pickup. Roshan Johnson, that's a Texas dude, so big fan of his. DeAndre Swift sucks, so maybe that guy will get a little bit more play. And the Green Bay running game looks really good, so maybe they can satisfy 2 guys as well, just seeing some of the things that are going on. But let's move on. Let's get to the Week 3 review and talk about some of these matchups that happened last week.
Sounds good. Our first one here was Chris versus Alex. I think that we thought coming into it that Alex was going to handle this one pretty easily. In looking at the scores, when it was all wrapped up, 134 to 102, kind of played out just as we expected here.
A little surprising that Alex kind of nailed his projection. I think that's that's pretty rare for a sleeper to just nail it like that. But we've said it a lot. I think what we said before this podcast is really telling. Is that having your first round pick or one of your high picks or one of your keepers go down is pretty dooming, especially early on. So not having Puka, this being Higgins' first week, like Chris's team is rough for things that were outside of his control. Maybe he could have had a better bench, but that's tough. The big thing for me is Alex's team is good. 134. He's the only undefeated person so far. Yeah, fear that man. He's coming for you. That's a good team.
And for me, for Alex's team, it's Chris Godwin. I don't think anybody expected him to do what he's doing. At this point, it's an 8th round pick, so that value is looking fantastic. And usually if everyone had told you that Hurts wasn't going to play well and score that low, you wouldn't expect that Alex would be doing this well over the course of a week. But the rest of the team's making up for the deficits there. So definitely a solid team, that's for sure. We'll see what Chris does. You're right. Losing his top 3 receivers is painful. And you're right, his bench was shallow. And there really isn't anyone out there to replace him. So until Puka gets back, which probably is week 8, maybe, it's going to be hard for him. That's for sure.
Just a real quick extra point. Alex's special teams, 25 points to Chris's 10. Having your kicker and your defense outscore by 15 is a big move.
It is, for sure. Next one here, another scenario of a team that's just kind of beaten down by injuries and unfortunate circumstances. This is the Katie versus Lizzie matchup. And projections thought it was going to be closer, 117 to 132. But again, Lizzie won this one pretty handily, 145 to 93. What I thought was craziest here is that you look at Katie's bench and you see like, oh my God, there's like 3 guys who exploded on this bench. But even with her, if she would have set a perfect lineup, it wouldn't have mattered. Lizzie's 145 was still enough that it wasn't going to make a difference. Wow. I think Katie would have come out to like 140 or something if she was 100% perfect on her set that's lineup. That's
brutal. Yeah, that's really tough. Because there were some really good performances, making that bench look a lot deeper. Alec Pierce has had a bunch of good games. He had a bad game. But yeah, Kirk, Hubbard, Purdy, all outscored the starters that she had. That's just Didn't you have a word, an award for this? Like
Oh,
the worst person to the worst picker, unlucky something. What was it?
yeah. I can't remember what the award name was for it. I should have brought it back this week. Maybe I still can.
Yeah, that would have been a good one. Because yeah, that matchup definitely dictated by the benches. Once again, I'm going to call out. Yeah, Brandon Aubrey has been great, and special teams Lizzie outscored by 10. So it's tough to overcome at the back end of your lineup like that when you're being successful with the ones that are mostly random.
And Lizzie's team was good all around. There's really not much you can do.
For sure.
I should have
got
actually
a really
clicked
good team.
into Lizzie's thing here too, because you can see the max score. I think Lizzie would have been like 180 or something if she's had a perfect lineup based on
Wow,
who was left. I could be
it's a lot of
misremembering
points.
that. But yeah, not pretty on that one. And I clicked off my notes here. Next one here is Max versus Sam, which was again supposed to be close, 120 to 122. And it was absolutely not close. 173 to 147 for Max.
Yeah, Max's team is really good. Neighbors another big day. Olave had a good score. Kyron Williams put up a big number. Jaden Daniels looks really good. It's a good team. Even the people that aren't performing, he's got people on his bench that can step up. So a little surprising. I think the biggest bummer is this is a week where Sam would have beaten basically everybody else. I think only Max and Danny outscored her, and anybody else, and she's now 2-1 and at the top of the league. In poll playoff position, but just ran into a train this week.
Yeah. Unfortunate timing sometimes. That's just how it goes. Our next one here is Brett Johnson versus myself. Again, it's supposed to be close on projections, 125 to 123, and Brett won this one on Monday night, 129 to 120. What do you think here?
Always the hardest thing is watching the Monday night game and watching the other team kind of start to eclipse. And yeah, I mean, Jamar Chase just put up a heck of a game on Monday night to steal it from you, Tim.
He did. And this wasn't even a scenario where it's like he got up and took a lead early. It was, I think, Jamar Chase's last touchdown reception where I was up by a point or half a point or something. And then it was Jamar Chase's last catch that went for the touchdown. And then he did nothing after that. So if that catch was stopped, it would have gone a different direction, which is kind of it's kind of fun when Monday night games end that way. Just unfortunate I ended up on the wrong side of it here. For me, again, I can't hit tight end. It would have felt better if I could have picked somebody halfway decent or if Achan played well. Because, again, he's been so great all season long and then getting nothing out of him this week. That was rough. So that's how it goes. Can't win them all. And then here's the matchup of the week. It was you versus Danny. It was looking like you were going to have a great week here, and it just didn't pan out for you. What happened?
You expect the people that I have on my team to have big games. So, like, Kamara should put up big numbers. Lamb should put up big numbers. Collins should put up big numbers. And the guys, they quote-unquote underperformed. Again, Anthony Richardson sucks. 7 points from him. He got outscored by Josh Allen by 23 points. That's huge. But having middling games from all the other guys, I think, the way that I set up my team is I want two guys to have huge numbers and everybody else to have middling numbers. And that's kind of how you win on a weekly basis. The biggest bummer is having those 46 points sitting on my bench. But even so, if you replace JSN with Juwan Jennings, I still lose to Danny. So that's a testament to how good his team is. 0.3 points from Ramondre Stevenson, and he still kicked my butt. Shout out to him. That's a good team.
You talk about the boom-bust nature of your team. I think he's at the exact same lineup as last week, and you put up 173 points last week to 112 this week. So it's just the players are good, just not this week, which is crazy.
Yep. Yeah. I I'm happy with it. I think that's the joy of fantasy, is seeing the guys that can put up the giant numbers. And I've had seasons where I have guys that, you just kind of expect to put up 15. You're like Tyler Boyd's and Austin Eckler's and stuff like that, who's just like, they're going to have 50 yards on the ground, 4 catches, and maybe a touchdown. And it's like, if you get enough touchdown variance, then you're going to win your week, but like, you're going to be competitive. And yeah, like you said, all these guys are boom bust guys. Like me and Max are playing this week. He's got Neighbors. I've got CeeDee Lamb. They both put up 23 points. That's exactly why you go and get those guys, those big numbers.
I have one last thought before we move on to weekly awards. One of the podcasts I listened to was talking about passing touchdowns being significantly down this year. Last year they were down from past years, and this year they're down further. So I think that's part of the variance we're going to see throughout the season, is that if passing touchdowns are not where they were, we're going to see poor QB numbers. Positions like tight ends, who are usually dependent on touchdowns, are going to be down, especially the streamers who don't have consistent target volume. And then the receivers, again, even more boom bust. Did they score touchdowns this week or not? It's going to be an interesting year if it continues to play out that way. But hopefully some of these bad QBs are going to get replaced with somebody who's more stable, and we might see that number balance out.
Yeah, it's interesting. The podcast that I listened to was saying that it's kind of like old school fantasy, where what you really want is, it would have been like a better idea early on to go running back, punt on quarterback and tight end, take a bunch of receivers, and then end up with, Brock Bowers and Jaden Daniels, where they got drafted in our league because those are high variance guys, unknown commodities. And so you end up with 2 stalwart running backs, whereas, the last 3 or 4 years, it's really been like, can you get those stud wide receivers? Can you get a couple of them on your team that are really going to move the needle? It's a whole different strategy. It
is. Unfortunately, only one person can have that late round success, though. Only one person gets Bowers, only one gets Jaden Daniels. So yep. I would have loved to have both of them. Just unfortunately, that's not the way it works.
I was hoping Richardson was going to be that guy.
Can't win them all.
Can't win them all.
Well, let's jump into the weekly awards here. Keep this train moving. Do you want to lead us off with the stud of the week?
I would love to. The stud of the week, Jamar Chase of the Cincinnati Bengals. Wow, well, I'm going to do that again. Jamar Chase of the Cincinnati Bengals. Damn near 30 points, 2 touchdowns on a Monday night. As we talked about before, he was the whole reason, or as we'll get to in a little bit, most of the reason that Tim ended up losing his matchup against Brett. Just a heck of a week, a bounce back. Looks like the guy that you draft him to be. If Burrow is hitting him in space, man, that guy looks freaking incredible with the ball in his hands.
He was wide open for a few of those plays, too. If I'm remembering right, only 6 receptions, but 2 of them were long touchdowns. So just kind of, that's how it's going to be for him this year.
It's so impressive when he gets the ball and turns upfield. Like, he makes people miss. He goes through dudes. He goes around dudes. He's a really, really impressive wide receiver. So cool to see him pick it back up. That he's a fun guy. He opens things up for T. Higgins. So hopefully that continues. Quick runner-up. We'll talk about him a little bit more in a second, but Saquon with another 33 points. Kid is on fire. Looks really good in the Philadelphia offense, and one of the big reasons that they win football games. He may have been the reason that they lost a football game in week 2, but I don't think that he is one drop pass is a knock against him. He looks great.
That's bad coaching. That's Sirianni's fault.
Yeah. Never been a great passer in space or a catcher in space for sure. So,
which is hilarious. He should have been. I thought everyone hyped him up to be that good pass catching back, and I think he is a good pass catching back. But again, he's not a receiver. You can't expect it to be perfect every time.
Totally. I'll leave it to you for dud of the week.
Perfect. For dud of the week, we have Devon Achane with 8.8 points, which is, based on what we did in week 1 and 2, a pretty steep drop off there. And going into this week, we knew the QB situation was not going to be great. I just anticipated that meant lots of checkdowns to Achane all week
100%.
long on this one, and it just didn't play out that way. We talked about how Jamar Chase helped Brett win the game with that last touchdown to help him win by 9. If I would have gotten anything out of Achane close to what he did in week 1 or 2, it would have just flipped the other way. So it would have been a lot closer matchup on that one. So we'll see. I think there's better weeks ahead for him. I think it wasn't pretty. The Dolphins looked awful.
Yeah. Achane's a big boom bust guy, but he has boomed way more often than he has busted. And so 8.8 points. If he has a normal Devon Achane game, he's winning you that week. So I think that's why we have him as dud. Our runner-up is Tyreek Hill. Just not a good Tyreek year, man. This is a first-round pick that you're expecting to have minimum 12 to 15 points, maximum 40s and 50s a couple times a year, and no Tua, Skylar Thompson, people seem to be focusing on him. He's just not having a good year. He may be dead of the week multiple times this year because it's really hard to rely on him at this point.
He's supposed to be QB-proof. He's supposed to be that guy who is dominant regardless, and you just feed him the ball. And we talked about Sirianni blowing the week 2 game for them with bad coaching and bad play calling. You wonder what Mike McDaniel's doing. You know you have a quarterback who's not good, and you're not feeding your best players, which seems absurd. Like, you're not going to hit them on long bombs. It's just not going to happen. So get them open in the space elsewhere and let them do Tyreek things. And they're just not letting them do anything.
Well, and it's interesting because all the coverage around the NFL has been that there's just, like you said, there's fewer passing touchdowns, there's fewer big plays, all this cover 2 stuff to keep like all of the offensive players in front of them. That's fine. That being said, you have the fastest player in the NFL at your disposal. Like, figure out ways to put him in places to be successful in the underneath areas and give him the space to run. Make him a running back. Give him shallow crossers, like whatever it has to be to put the ball in his hands, and it just doesn't feel like Mike McDaniel is prioritizing that, and that's why the Dolphins look bad.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, they'll figure it out. He's supposed to be a good coach. Maybe he'll be creative next week. We'll wait and see. I think, but again, for Chris, tough for him. It's hard to keep throwing Tyreek out there if nothing good is happening.
Yeah, he's really, in order for his season to turn around, Tyreek has to figure it out.
Hit us with the next one, Brett. This is yours.
Absolutely. The Michael Scott, No, God, Please, No award for the player that I am most scared of playing on a weekly basis. So far, what did we have? We had Mike Evans, Devontae Adams. Do we have a third, Tim? They're the only 2 that we hit so far.
That's the 2. And this is hilarious. This is a curse now. This is no longer an honor to be named here. It's more of like the Reapers coming and knocking them out.
I hope this is the case, because then I'm going to start picking people that I'm playing against, and it will be absolutely incredible. This week, it goes to our Stud of the Week runner-up, Saquon Barkley. He's put up 33 in week 1, 17 in week 2, 33 in week 3. He looks great in a great rushing offense. The Eagles have so few weapons beyond him on the field right now, especially with Devonta Smith out. A.J. Brown doesn't seem to be coming back anytime soon. Maybe this week. As an A.J. Brown owner, I know you're hoping that they hold him out until he's fully healthy, so we'll see how that goes. But, man, seeing him line up against you, you just got to expect, like, 17 feels like the floor for him. 33 feels like about average, and you know he's going to have some 3 or 4 touchdown games going on this year. He is absolutely the person that I do not want to see going into this next week.
And who does he play this week? Tampa Bay.
Oh, yeah, he'll be fine.
Right. He'll have a good week. And we kind of teased that this being
120 yards, 2 touchdowns. He'll be fine.
We talked about this being a curse. I'm going to backtrack. Week 1, Brett's call for this was Mike Evans. Fantastic week 1. Week 2 and 3, bad. Last week, you had Devontae Adams. Again, great week before that. 8 points, not great last week, and then comes up with a hamstring injury this week. So it's just hilarious that whoever you're saying here ends up either not playing well or not playing well and getting hurt.
I will say, I do not wish anything ill of Saquon. I very much enjoy watching him play football. I hope good things for him and his family in this coming week. I do not want to see him playing against me in fantasy this next week.
I will say that this is my last thought on Saquon before we move on to the next award here. All they're doing is giving the ball over and over and over. At what point is this volume going to take a toll on him, and he's going to have these little injuries become bigger issues? So we'll see. Maybe week 4,
we'll see.
He goes down. Sorry, Lizzie. Brett just cursed you.
We'll see.
Our next one here, the Jesse Pinkman, he can't keep getting away with it award. Last week's winner was Derek Carr, and I don't know about you, Brett. I loved watching him play poorly because I was tired of watching him get away with it. So fun to see me bat again.
That was a really sad game. It was a really hard watch. I would like the Saints to continue to be good. I think their offense is fun when it's humming. I don't think Derek Carr's a good quarterback. So yeah, I guess we'll see. But yeah, he can't keep getting away with it, and damn, last week he did not get away with it.
Against a bad defense, the Eagles aren't great. He should have dominated them.
Correct.
Just didn't happen.
Yeah.
This week's winner, though, is Zach Charbonnet. Looking at his rushing metrics, not anything special out of him. This really seems to be a volume play where the Seahawks are giving him everything, and he puts up 2 touchdowns, which is fantastic. The points look great. The player does not look great. And I think he'll keep riding this wave up until he's not the starter anymore. And the second that Kenneth Walker's back, I imagine he loses the job. Because again, when Walker's out there, he puts up great stats, great numbers, and looks good on the field. I don't know. Charbonnet doesn't excite me.
So let me tell you the 3 teams that the Seahawks have played so far. They beat the Skylar Thompson Dolphins. Mm-hmm. They beat the Jacoby Brissett New England Patriots. And they beat the Bo Nix Denver Broncos. This week they have the Detroit Lions, an actually good football team. So we will see if Zach Charbonnet can continue to get away with it against a very competent, well-run football team, because the first 3 weeks, that has not been the case. The Seahawks are seeing some absolute wild organizations, and we'll see if this can continue. That being said, they do have the New York Giants the week after, so he may be a good play the week after that, but then they see 49ers, 49ers, Cardinals, Jets, Cardinals, Packers, Vikings, and then the Bears. So the Seahawks are about to run into a pretty intense gauntlet of teams after the next couple weeks.
And I imagine Charbonnet won't be the starter anyways. Walker will be back.
Ken Walker will come back
at some point, and then he'll be losing the job at that from there on. But it's entertaining if these awards are going to be, if your No God No award, it turns into a curse, and they can't get away with it, turns into they tank the next week. That's going to be fun.
Get away with it. Yes, absolutely.
I'm going to enjoy that. Well, we're going to get into week 4 preview in just a second here, but first we have a word from our sponsors.
Are you a fantasy football addict? Do you find yourself spending more time analyzing player stats than sleeping? Do you have more fantasy football leagues than friends? Is your name Max O'Brien? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you're not alone. Fantasy Addicts Anonymous is here to help. Our support group is for those who have taken their love of fantasy football to the extreme. We offer a safe and judgment-free space where you can share your experiences, connect with others who understand, and learn how to manage your addiction. Remember, you're not alone. There's help available. Let's tackle this addiction together.
Welcome back in. Max, I'm sorry, you're taking strays here from the advertiser. I'm not sure if you're still in too many football leagues and still gambling way too much, but apparently they know more about you than maybe some of your league mates do. But now on to the Week 4 preview. So going into Week 4 here, we have a nice cluster of people again sitting at that 2-1, 1-2 phase. 7 of us sitting right there. Alex still leading the charge at 3-0, looking great. Katie and Chris, not looking so great. But again, we talked about it before. Not a lot going right with injuries and players just generally not being available for both those teams. So it's really hard to blame them for being where they're at this point. Looking at our first matchup here, this is you versus Max. Projections are sitting at 129 to 124. I'm just going to hand it straight to you. Let me know what you think about your matchup this week and what your odds are.
Coin flip. I feel like this is 50-50. I think Dalton Kincaid had a good game last week. I think he'll outperform Mike Gesicki, but that is the only real place that I feel like I have any edge. Since the draft, I've really liked Max's team. He has a lot of guys that I like a lot, so I think this is going to be pretty down the middle, and I think my decision to start Juwan Jennings after his almost 50 burger will really kind of decide this thing. Smart money has me starting JSN over him, but I think with the injuries to McCaffrey and Debo, and as a Niners fan, I just feel like you have to give third and Juwan another shot at it. And so I'm excited to see what happens, but I fully expect, like, I'm emotionally prepared to be 2-2. If my team ends up winning, that'll be sweet. But, you know, he's got a lot of exciting guys, a lot of guys that I like to watch. And after seeing both CD and Neighbors go for 23 points last night, I figured that this is going to be pretty dead even all day on Sunday.
Yeah, it's going to be a close one for sure. I think the difference is going to be Jaden Daniels and McLaurin. I think McLaurin's 11.8 line, probably low for what Arizona's
especially
capable
now.
of doing.
Yep. It'll be really interesting because I'm going to start Goff, and he's got Gibbs in his starting lineup. And so on Monday, seeing those two numbers go up at the same time is probably going to end up deciding things. It'll be super funny if there's like a pass from Goff to Gibbs that gives him the win over me. But it's going to be a good one. I'm excited. I think that one will be a lot of fun.
Next one here is Chris versus myself. I feel like I'm catching a nice break here on this after taking a close loss last week. Don't want to jinx it, but again, projections looking good for me. Looking 127 to 116 as it currently stands. And Chris has just had a rough go at this point.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, man, but I want to be glass half full on Chris's team. I want him to get his first win. So, there's every possibility that the Chiefs put it on the Chargers and Mahomes has a big day. Aaron Jones has been playing really well. T. Higgins against Carolina is a good matchup. And then with Jalen Warren out, Najee Harris is the only guy in Pittsburgh, and they're playing a awful run defense in Indianapolis. So that could be a big number as well. So, yeah. Of which DeAndre Swift was unable to score any points, but that is a different conversation for a different league that I am angry at last week. That being said, we'll see how that goes. So if I was you, I would have a little bit of nerves, but your team is better than Chris's team for sure.
My nerves are starting two Bears players. And Caleb Williams, we talked about Caleb was not being good, but their rushing offense is so abysmal. I mean, Caleb Williams threw over 50 times last week. Wasn't great on it, but when you throw 50 times, you're going to put up numbers and give lots of chances for targets. So if anything happens, Caleb is not going to be great, but as long as he feeds Odunze and Kmet, fingers crossed. I think Kmet having a line of 8.5, probably, again, with my luck at tight end, he'll probably get 0. But I think he can do better than that, especially if 50 passes are being thrown.
Do we know if Keenan Allen's playing yet?
I have not seen that, but I don't think he's practiced at all this week. So I'm thinking it's going to be a 3-man show with Keenan being gone.
I have him in a different league, I think. I think it's in my other league. And I think I'm with you in the A.J. Brown camp where I hope that they hold him out until he's fully healthy. But if they do bring him in and he plays, he had a lot of targets week 1. Mm-hmm. That's just another person to eat up snaps. That could swing that a little bit. So,
and Chris and I both have our share of injuries here. You know, I'll probably have AJ Brown and Devontae Adams out. He's gonna have Puka out and Tyreek being useless. So, I mean, it's unfortunate when you lose your top 2 guys for both of us, but we'll make do.
Totally.
Next one here is Katie versus Brett Johnson. Projections look like Brett's gonna win 127 to 118 here. Katie got off to a bit of a slow start with the Dallas defense, which you expect better things from them. That defense hasn't looked good this year.
Totally agree. I guess it's okay that you only gave up 6 or 15 points to the New York Giants, but like they're not. I mean, Micah Parsons is their best player. He's got a high ankle sprain. That's tough to deal with. Mm-hmm. I just think you drafted them to be a set it and forget it type of defense, and they're just not anymore. Yeah. I will say Brett's studs are super impressive. Kyler Murray's been really good. Bijan Robinson is a do-it-all stud. Derrick Henry, though a little touchdown dependent, but like has gotten a lot of volume as well. And then with the game Jamar Chase put out last week, hopefully he can sustain that as well. The periphery of his team is a little rough, but those like superstars on his squad can really carry this in a way that I don't think Katie's team will be able to sustain. So if Katie's team can, kind of hit the middle ground and stay average, and Brett's team flops, I think there's a win there for her. But I fear that someone on Brett's team will put up a 40 or a 50 and win him the week.
I'm just not sure who it's going to be, because the Buffalo defense is pretty, I shouldn't say pretty good, it's very good. And yeah, it should be a shootout. It should be a high-scoring game for lots of opportunities for Henry and Flowers. It's just a matter of, do they actually do it or not at this point? So we'll see. I mean, there's definitely chances for both of them. There's definitely players, I look at both rosters, that I have questions about. Tyjae Spears for Brett and Keon Coleman for Katie. Could be fantastic. Could be nothing.
Yep.
So we'll see. If I have to call my shot at shaky start of the week to begin with, I'd say it's Tyjae Spears. All his points were in garbage time last week. So if Brett's listening, maybe he'll swap him out last second, because he was pretty useless for most of that game.
Because we know a lot about fantasy football.
We know a lot. You should
listen
Brett.
To us.
You should start Hopkins. Start Hopkins instead. He'll be better. Do it. We'll see. Katie, I'm sorry if that actually pans out for him. But also, Katie, you should be shooting Deontay Johnson, because that guy's going to kill it over Coleman. If I jinx her twice and tell her to start Deontay Johnson twice, and he's bad both times, then that would be hilarious. But I think that Andy Dalton's going to be better. So that's all I have to say for that one. I don't want to mess this one up any further and put any more bad thoughts in Katie's head that sabotage her. Our matchup of the week, Danny versus Alex. Going to be very close, 132 to 133.
I'm going to stop you, Sam. We missed Lizzie and Sam.
We did miss Lizzie and Sam. I just don't want to talk about Lizzie. I think that's what it is. We talked about her too much and her team.
Her team's good, man. Her team's really good.
Thank you for bringing me back to that, though. Lizzie versus Sam. We're looking that one, 130 to 119 is where the projection stood before the game started this week here. Lizzie's team's good. Nothing else to say.
Lizzie seems really good. I mean, after last week, I really want to see Sam win one maybe that she shouldn't win, because she got kind of screwed on one that she should have. I think this boils down to Ken Walker. If Ken Walker plays, that's huge. Otherwise, it's going to be a little rough. I think then Sam has to start Samaje Perine, who did not seem to factor in the Chiefs' offense last week, and would be a pretty big hole. Especially with Lizzie having Saquon and David Montgomery. I love Sam's wide receivers. Garrett Wilson is great. Drake London is great. I like Jaden Reed a lot, even in a Packers offense run by Malik Willis. But, if Ken Walker plays and is Ken Walker, that's huge. Otherwise, I think this is going to be a rout.
She needs to figure out her running back situation soon. Rashad White's on the wrong side of this offense, it seems. He's been going downhill. Walker, I don't think is going to play. I'm pretty sure he's out. And even if he is, you have Walker for the rest of the season. White, I don't think you can trust going forward. And then Zeke's losing his job. P-Run's not going to have it. You'd be playing Eichler as your number 2 the rest of the way out.
Call me, Sam. Call me. I'm ready to trade. I got running backs. Holler at me.
Nobody wants your running backs, Brett. Stay in your lane.
J.K. Dobbins is great.
We'll see. We'll see. He's been good. Not your matchup.
All right. Let's go to matchup of the week.
Danny versus Alex. Looking like Alex is a 1 point favorite here going into this one. Two great teams, though. Alex is the last undefeated. Danny's trying to chase him down. What do you think?
I think this is the Ramondre Stevenson game. Ramondre against a 49ers defense that does not have Javon Hargrave anymore. We'll see what that looks like, but Rice versus Jefferson is a a wide receiver one matchup that is stellar. Pitts Kelsey is like the disappointing tight end Super Bowl. Jameson Williams versus Chris Godwin is the 2024 breakout player of the year conversation winner. Etienne versus Jerome Ford is like a good, like almost good running back competition as well. Yeah, I fully expect this to be a 50-50 split, and whoever comes out top will probably be the top of our league going forward, the person that we're all chasing in the early part of the season. So this will be a fun one. I'm excited for it.
I'm going to call my shot here. I think Danny crushes Alex.
Oh.
Here's my hot takes. I think Jalen Hurts isn't going to play well. I think it's going to be all Saquon. He has no weapons, and he's not that great of a quarterback to start. So when Jahan Dotson's the guy, if there's not a tush-push getting him in, I think it's going to be Saquon all day long. So I think Hurts is in for another, what was it last week, 10 points, 11 points last week? I think we're going to see similar out of him. And then Jefferson, do you remember what happened with last time Jefferson played Jair Alexander last year? I think he held him to one reception.
The Packers love, man. You got to calm down.
It's not Packers love. Go back and look at that game. Jair takes this matchup super seriously. He's going to follow Justin Jefferson around the field the entire game. And last time they played, he just bullied him all over the field to the point that Jefferson caught like one pass against him. I think that it's going to be a tough matchup for him. So I don't think Jefferson's going to have that cakewalk that he's had the past few weeks. And then Ayuk looks out of shape. That's all I got to say. I just think there's a lot of players in this team that are going to have tougher matchups than the projections suggest. And last one's ETN. The Jacksonville Jaguars are just so bad. And when that offense is as bad as it is, Etienne's a great player. He should be fantastic. He's got nothing to work with. So I just think with 4 or 5 of his studs, the so-called studs, having less than ideal situations, I think it's going to be hard. And then I just have a feeling that you could talk about Ramondre. I think he's going to be way better than 12 points. Breece Hall versus Denver. And it looks like it's going to rain, according to this, what I'm looking at on Sleeper. I think he's going to have a great day. And Josh Allen, what did he do? Put up 40 points last week? So 30. Sorry, not 40. 30 points. I just have a feeling that Danny's going to exceed expectations, probably put up 145. I think Alex is going to end at like 122. Let's come back to this.
Tim, do you have a 529 set up for Zoe?
And Ryan, yeah.
I'll bet you $100 to Zoe's 529 that Alex beats Danny this week.
Okay. All right. I like it. So I'm going to write this down. I'm going to write this on our note sheet here. We're going to toss it into the chat so we don't forget. What happens if I'm right? I believe
Alex.
What happens if
$100 to Zoe's or $100 to Ben's?
Right. So we have the money figured out, and we're just doing straight winner loser. Okay.
Correct.
It's all right.
Yeah.
I got my numbers. I want to see if I'm right. That would just be hilarious if I actually called my shots right on like what I think they're going to end up
145 to 122. Wow. No, I'm just calling win or lose. $100 to the 529. I'll take Alex. You take Danny.
I like it.
Let's go.
This is fun.
Cool.
Perfect.
Yeah, that'll be great.
All right, let's wrap this up. You got a Tyler time story, so we'll jump into this quickly and then call it a night. I like that we have a bet on our children's future. Chris is going to be really proud of you for having a 529, actually.
Thank you.
For your kid. So before you go into your story, I'm just going to talk about this. Chris is a bully.
Yeah, go for it.
You mentioned to me that I'm being a little harsh on Chris for his team sucking. I think that's real. Chris is a bully on 529 plans to our family. It's hilarious. I love it. So the 529s that we have are under Chris's name because he has an investment property in Cleveland.
For you and Chris, or for Zoe and Ryan?
For Zoe and Ryan, they're under Chris's name.
Oh, wow.
He owns a property in Cleveland, and it's a more favorable plan in Ohio than it is in California. So he set them up in a more beneficial state, which is great. But Christmas number one, Chris put like around the house at Christmas dinner QR codes of how to donate to Zoe's 529 plan, and was like bullying my father and mother-in-law into donating and bullying my parents into doing monthly contributions for Zoe's 529. So like regularly he's just like, got a 529, give him some money. Do you care about your grandchildren's future?
That's so funny.
So he bullied them at Christmas. And then, so Ryan's 3 months, just turned 3 months. And so Chris set him up the 529 as soon as we got his social security number. And he got my parents to put money in it immediately. He puts money in it as well every month for him as like a thank you from him, which is appreciated. Awesome.
That's awesome.
I hadn't started doing it yet. He's like, hey, have you gotten around to putting a deposit into Ryan's 529? I'm like, no, I just haven't done it yet. Can you resend me the link to it? He's like, okay, cool. Because I'm looking here and it looks like only myself and mom care about your son's future. I'm just like, screw you, man. It's been 1 month of this plan being open, or a month and a half of this plan being open. Like, he's gonna get my money. So just hilarious that we're talking 529s and he is a bully on investments here.
It is fully my favorite like bet these days, because it's just like a net benefit for the people that you care about. And so like, oh, it's $100. Like, I would probably put that $100 into Ben's 529 regardless. Mm-hmm. And if I can donate to Zoe's or Ryan's, that's great. It's just super funny. It's a great thing. I highly recommend everybody do it, and bet your friends to give money to your kids' college fund. It's so funny that he's a bully about it. It's like, Tim, why don't you care about your son's future?
This conversation literally happened this last Sunday. He was over, and yeah.
Oh, it's so
great.
Good. I'll try to be really quick, but it's kind of serious, but it's kind of silly. Ben went to the allergist today and got diagnosed, approved. It was confirmed that he is allergic to peanuts. And so it's super funny because our friend and Alex will know Woojin as well, but like one of our, ex-collegiate member friends is deathly allergic to peanuts. And so I was texting Woojin and trying to figure all this stuff out. And it's kind of a weird thing because Ben has a contact allergy to peanuts as opposed to like an anaphylaxis thing. And so we're like talking about immunotherapies and we're talking about all this stuff. And we just like kind of took a step back and it's like, well, like how often is Ben actually like presented with peanuts on a daily basis? And it was really a weird like mindset shift because Kate eats like peanut butter toast every morning. I eat peanut butter toast every morning. Kate has like an afternoon stack where she'll do yogurt with peanut butter. And so like peanut butter is like a weirdly big part of the Colleton household. And for our son to just like be allergic, where I have no history of it, Kate has no history of it. Like she's allergic to birch. I'm allergic to adhesives in shoes. Her mom's allergic to shellfish. Like peanuts were never a consideration to us. And for him to do this and us to need to do like the immunotherapy is like 2 teaspoons of peanut butter powder every day for like 4 or 5 years is pretty insane. But the benefit of it, which is really cool, is that there's like a 60 or 70% chance that when he is an adult, if we do this immunotherapy, he'll have like 0 severe reactions. So you'll remember, Alex may remember, that there was a time at the triathlon in Slow called Wildflower where our friend Woojin took a handful of Chex Mix and put it in his mouth. Chex Mix uses peanut oil, and he had to get helicoptered out of Wildflower. Funny enough, the person who picked him up from the hospital in, I think it was Atascadero, was my future wife, Kate. Picked him up and took him back to the dorms. If we were to have that same situation with my son after immunotherapy, he would need like an allergy pill or some Benadryl in order to be fine. And so it's going to be really weird because he's got like, we're going to get like 4 or 5 EpiPens to put all over his ecosystem. And yet the allergist was like, he should also never need those. And we texted all of our friends and everybody was like super sorry for us. And yet we're just like, no, it'll be fine. Like, we're just going to stop eating peanut butter toast and instead have jelly toast and it will be totally fine. Super funny.
It's an interesting one because like you're right. Peanut butter is all over the place and it's hard to avoid it. And it seems like it's unfortunate for sure. You have a good mindset on how you're going to address it, but it's just unfortunate. It's
nice because even now, if he was to like eat a peanut, he wouldn't go into like 911 emergency situations. He would have hives and probably be pretty uncomfortable, and we'd have to like shoot him full of Benadryl and he would be fine. There is a scarier scenario that we just don't have to deal with. But that being said, I feel like everybody like there's this like, as a parent, you have this general level of anxiety. And then anything that is added on top of that just creates a little bit more anxiety. And so it is the kind of thing where this makes the way that Kate and I are approaching it is like, this just makes us a little bit more of serious parents because we are going to have to like add this extra chore onto our daily basis where it's like, are we giving him powders? Are we giving him drops? Or are we doing like shots for him, all to make him in his future not have the problems that a general peanut allergy would have. So like it makes it now a little bit easier because it's like we're doing good things now for his future success as opposed to like we have to avoid everything because he's going to die. It's like, no, he's not going to die. He's going to get a rash and it'll be fine, which makes it feel a lot better.
It could be worse. You're right. You said it's the contact variety, not the anaphylaxis. So again, in the grand scheme of things, they could have been a lot more serious and a lot more complicated for you all. You have a good mindset on it. Do what you can.
I think, Tim, my last point in this podcast is I think going from the EBDB weekly update, this podcast needs to start being called "You Can't Win 'Em All," because that seems to be a common thread throughout this entire thing. Is you can't win them all, and then if Alex ends up going undefeated, we will name this podcast whatever he wants us to, because he can win them all, and then Alex is our god and deserves to name the podcast.
All right, rebrand. But now you're making me redo the graphics. You have to go back and recreate stuff. I thought I was done for the season making transition videos, but I'll redo it. Dog. It's fine. I'll do it for you. It's a great idea. It's you can't win them all because I'm going to win this bet and you're going to owe me $100.
$100
the fund
to your kids.
We're talking about last thing for bets too. You heard in the chat, Lizzie wants to bet do shotguns for our next matchup later in the season. So
enjoy.
We'll be having a guest on later on. And if it's more people who want to place their bets, take their shots, and come onto the podcast to do something silly, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think if you like the podcast, if you want to come on and talk, you don't have to be here the whole time. An hour is a lot of commitment, but if you want to come on and shoot the shit, please do. Having 3 people on was a lot of fun, even though it's a little bit difficult to navigate. It's as much as I love talking shop with Tim, it's always nice to have a different voice in the house as well.
We'll get a groove going, but we're running long again. So thank you all for joining us. That's going to do it for this week, but we'll be back again next week. Maybe Wednesday, maybe Thursday, maybe Friday. We'll see when Brett's free, but we'll make it work.
Good luck, everybody.
Talk soon.